We built an AI project management system for a client that helps plan projects from start to finish. Things like writing the entire project plan, assigning the tasks automatically to team members based on their skills and their roles within the business. We did it using a tool that the client already used, which is Airtable. We also integrated other things like the ability to use any AI model, also the ability to assign different tools and softwares to your team members in that process as well. The reason why we built this is because we had an existing project management tool template on our website, and somebody saw it and they're like, Mitch, this is good, but I want something better. There are a few things that I need, and I want you to build this out so that me and my team can use it to be way more effective when it comes to project planning. So we did that, and it's a pretty impressive automation. And there are 3 AI components to this particular workflow. Since we have this product, why don't I just share the entire process so you can see how we got to this finished product. And eventually going to get to all of these interfaces here inside of Airtable, where you can see how each of these interfaces had been built. These interfaces start with a database first and how we structure all of that. So what I'm going to do is break this down into multiple videos. There's going to be 6 videos in this series, and by the end, you're going to understand how to design databases inside of Airtable so that you know how to structure your different tables, how to link them together. You're going to understand the different workflows that we created inside of make.com so you can connect all of that information together so that the AI understands your team, they understand the tools that you're using, they understand the project that you want to create. Then we will also dive into how we built the interfaces and created that final product. Because the problem with project management tools that I've found is that they're just way too complicated for entrepreneurs to manage their teams. They're either too convoluted, these tools like monday.com. We tried to use ClickUp last year. It was an absolute mess. There's plenty of others out there as well. I've used Asana, I've used Teamwork. I keep coming back to just using Airtable. Airtable is so intuitive for the brain. It's so much easier to understand when it's in tables, and you can build your own interfaces on top if you need to. And a lot of the times we build workflows where we don't even need the interfaces, but clients like them. For something like this, it actually works pretty well. Especially if you're using it with your team as well, then we like to have these types of interfaces. But the problem with project management tools is that people don't use them. That's why they don't work. We need to find the balance of making it as simple as possible, but also allowing us to have the features that we want without too much bloat that just gets confusing and we don't want to use. That's what we built here for this project management tool, and we call it Project Command OS 2.0. Remember, I had a basic version I was using with my pet care company. I sold that company last year. It was doing more than $500,000 a year. I was working on it less than 10 hours a week. We would plan projects in a tool like this, assign it to a few VAs, and they would basically run that business for us. And that's how I got into these automations. Is I wanted to upskill my VAs so that they could create higher quality work in a much more efficient way. So that's how we got started. Now let's just dive into the databases. So the first part with any real AI tool, especially if you're building for a client, when it comes to automation, is that you want to have some databases to work from. You could use things like Google Sheets if you wanted to, but they're just not as good as Airtable. Even the Airtable free version is way better than Google Sheets. So we use Airtable as our pick of choice. The way that we've structured this, and we structure a lot of our products builds for clients in a similar way. We have the brand assets tab. This is everything that you should feed into the AI in order for the AI to understand the brand. I'm just going to run through some of these fields here. I'm probably not going to go through all of them, but if you do have any interest in some of these, if you do want to build this system yourself, you could pause the video at certain times, understand the fields we have here, and begin to build this out yourself. If you don't want to build this out yourself, on our website, there's a template. It costs a couple of dollars and it will save you 40, 50, 60 hours of build work. You can have our templates and build on top of those. If you are an agency or wanting to build these for somebody else, you could take our templates and sell them for 20 times more than what we're selling them to you for, just like we did to this client that we built this project for. So we have a few things here for our brands. Number one is we can do this in any language. As long as the AI model supports the language you're choosing, you can put in any language and the AI automations will reference that language. We give it some context about our brand. We give it a few different types of prompt ideas. Another thing is that we don't want to be building all of our prompts inside of the automation tools. We want to give the client or the user some flexibility so they can adjust these prompts if they want. So these are all the things that we add into the brand assets, which become the pillar for every product that we do. And then we think about the most important things that we need when it comes to building out these databases for a tool like this. Another one that we always add in as well is our AI models. We use a tool called OpenRouter. OpenRouter is an aggregator that pulls in all of the different LLMs that are out there, so that if you are building any type of product, doing any development work, then by simply selecting or adding a code into the workflow, into your make.com automation, into your N8N automation, you can use any model that you want. If we come back to this list, we can see here that we have Claude 3.7, we have O1 Pro, we have Grok, we have some of the O3 models. So like we can then update these. So like there's probably a more recent model now as well, which is Gemini. So if we just type in Gemini, let's go with Gemini 1.5 Flash Pro. Now, if we wanted to add this, all we need to do is copy that code, come across, add a new record in here. It then creates that. The developer account is OpenRouter. We put that code in there again. We add in our max tokens and our temperature. Max tokens here are 8,000. And our temperature, I like to keep super low because we are planning projects. We don't want it to be creative. Basically, temperature is how creative you want the model to be. We've now integrated that model into our system. So we can use Gemini in any of our workflows now. That's how cool these types of databases are when we begin to link records into our workflows. As you watch videos 2, 3, and 4, that's where you'll really start to understand what I mean by this. We then have our project pillars. So the way that we were planning this out with a client was, okay, let's take all the main project pillars that you have in your business. These are like marketing, sales, operations, those types of things. We have those as pillars, and then we have our projects, we have our tasks. So we link those tasks together, and we have our team members because we want to give the AI some context about our team. We have our tools and software, and we added in an SOP database as well, which doesn't have much relevance to the AI automations, but it's a good place to keep everything in one area. So these are the tables that we decided to build. Now, coming back, let's start with project pillars. Before I dive into all of the fields in the table, I want to show you something that we talk about all the time. And there's a few key things here in our AI automation blueprint, some of the key principles that we follow. Like I said, the first thing when we're building these automations, we need to think about database structuring. So we have our foundational databases, which I just talked about, which is our AI models, our brand assets, and so forth. Then we have our creation databases. When we get started with those, what I like to do is find the biggest domino we're trying to figure out. For the client, the biggest domino, if we come into like the final project, was we wanted to plan projects and assign tasks. So this workflow here, it takes in all of the information from the top. You choose an agile team, then choose our AI model. We get the output draft, and then we do a final push of the final project plan once we've done a little editing. The domino for this one was figuring out all the fields we needed to capture to plan these projects. The projects needed somewhere to capture the ideas. As an entrepreneur, you probably understand you have a million ideas every single year, and we need a better way to prioritize those. So the way that we did that in this final version here, we use something called the ICE framework, so impact, confidence, and ease. Anytime you have an idea, you add in a description of what that is, you add in a hypothesis of why you think that would be great, and then you give it a score. How impactful will this be to your business? What is the confidence you can actually execute this well, and how easy is it to get it done? That will then give you an overall score, and you'll be able to prioritize based on some numbers. The numbers are dependent upon what you add in there, so you can game the system a little bit, but at least gives you a better system than just having a whole bunch of bullet points somewhere on your computer that you don't really come back to too often, or you start to prioritize the wrong things because they're a little bit easier to do or less intimidating to do and so forth. So number one is like we started with that. How do we just capture all of that stuff? So we built that out. We have our description, we have our hypothesis, we have our extra context. Extra context could be as simple as a couple of sentences. The extra context could be as detailed as an entire project plan that you did 2 years ago that was pretty decent, and now you just need to plan that out again for this project with a few different team members and so forth. So that's what we were looking for. And then we added in our fields for the scoring. So impact, confidence, and ease. These are all just number fields. And then we could use that to create an overall rating. So this is a formula summing each of those fields and then dividing them by 3. The output we should get is 6.67. We can actually do a couple of decimal places. I like to do that for this field. So let's just add that in. Now we can see all of these different overall ratings. What we can do inside the interfaces is filter or sort that field by the overall ratings. In this instance, the second one here would actually be at the top. That means any of the projects that rise to the top, then they're probably the ones that we want to try and prioritize first before some of the others that are less impactful to the business. So that's what we did. We got all of those things built in. We started to play around with how that would look. And then from that point, we can then build the AI automations on top. So in order to push it into AI, and I'm going to come back into these scenarios soon, we have step 1, step 2, and step 3 here, which is the plan project, the final project plan, and a way to distribute all of the project plan tasks automatically into the system as well. So I'm going to come back to those. But in order to get the AI to understand that, we had to integrate the AI components, which is the AI model. So we simply added in a linked record. If I just do this again, we got a linked record, we can link to the AI models. We can now select an AI model in this workflow and pull it into this table so that we have the AI model in the record. A record is the row across in the table here. We can just pull that in here. Now we use these fields from the AI models table called lookup fields. If I right click on here, we can add lookup fields, which means all of these fields that we had in the AI models table are available for us to choose here. Now, why do we want to use lookup fields? The reason is because we want a single source of truth. When it comes to database structuring, you only want a single source of truth. Like you want one field in the entire database that if you update it one time, it changes in every single workflow. So if we come back to here and we look at the max tokens, for example, when I set the max tokens and the temperature, if I come across into our AI models and I change this to 7,000 one time, and I come back into this table here again, it's changed here in this row as well. So this is what we call a linked record. This is the most important part to understand when it comes to database structuring. You only ever want to have one source of truth in your workflows at any one time. The reason is, let's say you have a really complicated database where you have 100 different tables and you need to use this open router code in 100 of them. Imagine if you didn't link in this record and you had to update your AI model, you would have to go into 100 different tables and update that 100 times manually. Whereas now we just add this in here one time and it updates all 100 at the same time. So that's why learning database structuring is so important. So if we come back into our interfaces now, we can see all of those fields that I just mentioned are in here. And then if we open this up, this is where we begin to plan the project a little bit better. So we have all of these fields at the top, which I was talking about. And then it's like, okay, if we're planning out this project, then we actually want that to be a certain project pillar, let's call it. So we need to come in and we go, how do we structure this? You could have a single select field. If we just open up a single select, you could have operations, marketing, sales, all of that. It probably would work fine. But the benefits of having it in its own table is that we could then link the tasks back into the projects. If we're thinking more long-term here, if we want to break down the data by how many tasks do we currently have open for our automations project, if we had it in a single select field, we wouldn't be able to see that easily. We could probably do some filtering, but it just wouldn't be as easy. Whereas now, if we open up our interfaces and we come into our projects, let's go into our Kanban. So we have our projects here. We can then click into our tasks. So now if we open up this interface and look through all of these, because we've linked the record in automations, for example, we can find that task here and then we should be able to click into it. It looks like we forgot to allow that. Let's just allow that. If we click on this here and then we click allow, it allows us to go directly into this project. I'll just publish that so it's available. Now we have access to that project from our project pillars section. If I click into this, I go directly into that project. This is fundamental software development. We need to understand the end goal so we can start to develop early on how we're going to get there. If we built a single select, there's no chance we could have built that into the interface at the end. So these project pillars is quite simple. So we have our projects tab, we have the all tasks, which is linked to another record or table. We have the number of assigned tasks, the number of completed tasks, the total tasks, and the percentage of tasks done. which is formula of number of tasks done divided by total tasks. And then you format that as a percent using the formatting field. Very easy to set up. We come back into our projects now. We've got our core pieces, right? We've got our project plan that we need. We've got the AI model available. We've got our project pillar. Let's have a quick look in our interfaces again. And we're moving down. So next we're like, okay, if you're planning projects, then we probably need a start and end date, right? So we're going to add those two fields in, which are very easy to do. But the most important things to do, and this is where I'd see pretty much all task management tools failing big time, maybe Monday.com do it in a kind of decent way, is we can actually assign team members and tools to each of the tasks. So in order to do that, we actually need to do a similar strategy where we have our own tables for those types of things. If we go to our team members, we can add a team member database. In this field specifically, responsibilities, we can list all the things this team member is responsible for in our organization. We can also add in availability of like how much time they have available each week. Are they full-time, part-time, contractor? And then we simply just add in first name and last name, and then you can add your users for your team into this section. So what that does is if we come back into here, so let's say we're scoping out this one here, which is Plan and Scope AI newsletter project. And let's just say everybody on the team is included. This pulls in information from the team members table. Let's come back into here. We've selected our team field, which is back here. If I open this up, all of these team members have been selected. And what that does is this is also one where we can add in lookup fields. So we can pull in the responsibilities of that team member. We have team members responsible for this project, John, Dolly, Sally, and all of the responsibilities or skills that they have. So we pull that into the system, and then we can actually split or like send it all. So we use this roll up field here. We're concatenating all of the values from our team members and rolling up the values into a field. So basically it just means it joins it all together, all of these stuff together, so that we can send this into the AI. So the AI will then have a prompt that says, let's go back to the interface because it's easier to explain. The AI has a prompt that says, here's the project name, here's the description, here's the hypothesis as to why we think this is going to be a great project. Here's the extra context that you need. This is the start date and the end date of the project. And these are all the team members and their responsibilities for this project. We can also do the same for tools and software. You add in, Airtable, what we use it for. You have your pillar, which is for operations, and we just link to the website. So we use that so it can align the team members with the right software tools, with the entire context of the project, to then plan that project out, to create a team member plan. Now, I think you're starting to understand how this structure is very impressive when it comes to planning projects very easily with AI. And especially if you have previous project plans that have the right team members structured out, then project planning goes from a few hours per week to literally a few seconds per week in terms of planning and the ability to create these types of plans. So that's the base structure as to how we got started. And that was basically how we got the first one started. Now, what we found was that we would plan with AI automation, and very rarely would it get it correct. It's probably partly our fault. We weren't giving it enough information and didn't have all of the information, the old templates. So partly our fault. But also, secondly, is if you are using AI inside of the ChatGPT dashboard, then very rarely do you do one prompt and get the output that you want. We're usually iterating on prompts a few times in order to get the output we're actually looking for. So if that is the case in the dashboard, then why are we not replicating that inside of our AI automation workflows? So that's basically what I got to with the rest of the workflow. If we come back into the interface, we see here we have our AI outputs in this section. I think I even called it at some point like draft AI output. And then we have our final project plan. So our draft comes into here. So we need a field to send the first draft, the output back into Airtable. So that'll all come into here. And then what we do from here is some editing. We make sure the right team members are in the right place. We might remove some stuff. It always tries to add in legal stuff to the project plans for some reason. So we remove that. And then once we have a better structure of who does what, we create a final project plan in this format here, structured in a way that allows us to assign the tasks automatically using this next automation down here. So we needed those few extra fields. We needed a new prompt field for our final prompt, our final project plan output, and a new trigger for assigning those tasks to the right team members. Plus, then we needed somewhere to send those tasks. So if we come back into our database structure, then we added all of those fields. We've got our main project plan automation here, which is a formula. This formula is used so that if you don't have all of the fields completed, then that plan project button won't work. So you need to have the AI model completed. You need to have the prompt template filled out. You need to have the project plan prompt filled out. You need to have all of those things filled out in order for that plan project to run. Then once you have the final output, that's when the final output formula says, if you have all of those things, then you're allowed to run the final project plan. So this is just a few building techniques that we picked up along the way. We were finding that people were finding it hard to understand when to click these buttons. So we added formulas to say that only if this field is filled out with some information, then the button is allowed to be pressed. So it just allows people to work through this workflow a little bit easier. And something that we always do with our AI workflows is we add in an AI status. Here, once we start planning, we want to see where it's at. So we set up some fields inside of make.com, which I'm going to get to in the next video. And we add in a status update when the automation begins. As soon as it starts, it updates it to AI writing. It might spend 1 to 3 to 5 minutes completing, and it will stay on AI writing. And then once it's done, it will change the status to AI complete. So this is just really good building techniques so that the user understands what's actually going on in the background. The worst thing is if you press a button and the AI is running and you have no idea if you're supposed to wait, if it's glitched out, what's going on. So we just add in a status field. Then we have our AI model here for distributing the tasks. We can do simple distribution or granular distribution. It would depend on whether there's just a few tasks to distribute, then you go simple. If you have a massive multi-month project plan, then you can go granular and they split it up a little bit better. And then we can distribute those tasks. And once that's done, it will move into the next phase. So that's 90% of the automation to get it through this part. This is the big domino. As soon as we figured this part out, then we could come in and we can complete the rest of the workflows and tables. The only thing left is once we've planned that project, we need to send those tasks somewhere. If we are sending those tasks into a database, we actually needed a different table for it to go into so that it was easy to create a new record rather than linking it back into our project plan record. So we have here a task table, and that is linked to our projects, our brand assets. It has a status, it has assignees, it has our task description. So these are broken down based on the AI output. It has a start date and an end date. The AI also assigns a start date and an end date based on the timing that you have for your project. So remember, we come back in here. So it knows we've got like 4 or 5 days to complete this task. If we have 10 tasks, we need to split this up over those 5 days. The AI understands it needs to do certain things in a certain order, and it will assign those tasks deadline dates based on the workflows. Any related SOPs we can link into here as well. It has some of the main things that the team might need for this particular task. So if we come into our interfaces, how does that look? We can have a look at it in a Kanban view. And if we open up a task for Perform AI TubeKit workflow diagnostic, we've got all of this information here. It tells us what project this is for, the status, start and end date, task description, who's involved, and any related SOP can be added into here as well. So let's say we had an SOP for this task, we could add it in so that if our team members not fully understanding what they need to do or what this task is for, and need a reminder of the SOPs, we can link them very easily. So that's like the bulk of this project management tool. A lot of people have SOPs for what they're actually creating as well. So we decided to add in an SOP database, which is very simply done. It has an overview tab with a few different tools, manuals, operations and tech, all of those types of things. And that's built into a very simple table. So we have our SOP name, what pillar is it for, the objective. Is it a video or PDF that you can link to? Is it, this client in particular was using Google Sites. So do you want to link it to Google Sites? Screenshots. So do you have any screenshots to help explain this task? We can link it to these tasks and have a last updated field so that we know how recent it was created or updated. So that's what the SOP table looked like, and that turned into an interface. So anytime somebody has a question, they come into this table, into this interface here, they can see the SOP for that particular task. They can easily search for the SOPs in this bar here, and it makes it very easy then to add into the tasks as they are creating them. So that's how we built this interface or this product for our client. And they're very happy with the results. Like I said, a large part of these AI automations is the value of the information that you input into the system. So if you have really great context, great descriptions, and some existing tasks that you can use as references, then a tool like this becomes incredible for shortcutting how long it takes to project plan, to basically like automating the task assignment completely, which very few of these other tools actually do. A tool like this becomes very valuable, and you're not having to have another subscription in Monday.com. You're using Airtable, which we're building basically our entire business through. Well, we have tons of workflows now that we use every single day. This is the future of development and running businesses, building your own custom workflows that work exactly for you. The pitch I always have for every product that we create is use what we have as a template. Like we've done 50, 60 hours of development work to build this template. And the beauty of building inside of Airtable, using make.com, using N8N, is that you can now take a template like this and add in any field, any type of automation that you want. You can't really do that when it comes to ClickUp. When it comes to Monday.com, there are some fields you can do it in, but it's not great. Usually you have to have a much higher plan to do the things you want to do. That's where Airtable really shines. For just a couple of dollars to grab a template like ours, you can get started with all of the hard work done, and you just do the customizing on top in order to get it exactly how you want. Reminder, we're going to dive into all of these make.com automations in the next video. So make sure you subscribe, because these videos are going to come out over the next little while. And we'll put this into a playlist for you as well, where you can actually dive in and understand how to build this entire thing yourself. But of course, if you don't want to build it yourself, then in here in our Project Command OS inside the community, you can see all of these setup videos and all the instructionals here and the templates that you need in order to get started. We have make.com templates, Airtable templates. We have in here a bit of education around how to use the platform. We have some bonuses in here as well. So all of that's available inside the community. Plus then you get access into the community feed where everybody's chatting and learning from each other. We have a few different videos as well. We have some extra bonus free automations. So things like metrical automations, YouTube thumbnail automations, team tracker templates. We'll occasionally do some future events as well. So they'll be coming up very soon. All of that's included. In the next video, we're actually going to talk about how to plan this project using make.com, like step number one. I'm going to dive deep into this automation. We're going to do a couple of the automations in the one video. And if you do want to learn more about that, then stick around and I will see you in the next video.